call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Mr. Jim Bard.
Here.
Mr. Dwayne Burt.
Here.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
Here.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly.
Here.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Here.
Mr. Fred Scott.
Here.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger.
Here.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Here.
Mr. Mark Butterball. Mr. Arian Gownkar.
Here.
Miss Lily Kell.
Pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag.
We would like to have a moment of silence for graduates who have passed away, recognizing Nolan Koplitz Hardy, class of 2014, Richard Kunkelman, class of 1967, Toby Lee Coy, class of 1986. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. As we begin our deliberations this evening, let's once again be reminded of our duty to represent all the children of this school community, regardless of age, sex, race, or creed, and regardless of need or ability. This meeting is being live streamed and uploaded to the district's YouTube channel. We may now have a moment of silence to reflect on our thoughts, plans, and actions on behalf of the students of the Shippensburg School District. We've already done that. So, Mr. Suiters, we're ready for agenda approval?
Yeah. Was there any changes to the agenda?
There are, board members, consent agenda 4C personnel under supplemental staff. The administration recommends approval of the following new appointments. Number 24, high school basketball coach, added Rick Lewis, effective date November 18th. Additionally, under the action agenda item, number 5J, purchase of the scissor lift has been deleted. We've found maybe a workaround that can save some money on that, so that was removed. Otherwise, the agenda is set.
Motion to approve the agenda?
Dwayne Burt, so moved.
Second by Steph Eberly.
Roll call.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott.
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard.
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Burt.
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly.
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
We've come to the citizens' comment period. This would be for comments on agenda items. I'm currently seeing two individuals with a desire to speak on agenda items. Mrs. Susan Spica, please. Before you begin, ma'am, just want to say, we're going to limit to 3 minutes and.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Got it.
So Susan Spica, I live on Prince Street in Shippensburg, and I just wanted to comment on the stadium agenda item. So I went to the last home football game this year, and it is not the fault of the Parks and Rec Department because they're kind of they've been in limbo for a long time trying to understand what the school district is going to do with the stadium. But it was appalling, and I was kind of left to wonder if teams are going to be willing to come and play there next year, if there is no inside place for them to be able to actually meet during halftime. There were 2 toilets that worked for all of the women in the entire park. There were no bathrooms for the teams other than the bathrooms that they shared with everyone else that are really inadequate. And it's my understanding that underneath the stands, it's condemned now for the team meeting space because of asbestos. So I wonder if it isn't maybe time, because there are such great needs in the district, to just kind of throw in the towel on the idea that we're going to have a fancy stadium for students with turf and just say, like, you're going to take money out of fund balance, partner with Parks and Rec, knock down that cement stand, knock down the pool house, work with them to build some really modest facilities, keep the grass, and have something that kids can actually use and that our community can use. Because those stands, I mean, that rotting cement thing is not in good shape. And I don't know how much longer you can expect the Parks and Rec Department to just continue to maintain it if you're not going to make a decision to do it. And I voted to have the original stadium over here. That got scrapped 3 years ago, and so it just seems to me for 3 years, it's just been back and forth. It's time to just do something for these kids, and then you also have to make sure you resurface that track, because otherwise we're not going to have football games or track meets in Shippensburg, and that would be a real shame for kids. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kevin Pilaster?
Kevin Plaster, 4 Roger Avenue. I'm wearing 2 hats tonight. Myself, I'm a community member, taxpayer. I just hope that the school board can work together, come up with a plan for the stadium, make it a good plan, keeping in mind taxpayers will be paying for this. My other hat, on behalf of Borough Council, I'd like to put behind us what has been behind us, and let's work together as a community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other speakers for agenda items at this time? Thank you. Moving on to reports. Mr. Gonkar?
Auditions for Shrek the Musical were held on October 26th for students interested in singing, acting, or dancing. The Thaddeus Stevens Trade School visited the school on October 26th to answer student questions about their programs. A college visit to Lebanon Valley College was held on the same day. On October 28th, Wilson College held a speech in the high school about dual enrollment. The high school held a trip to Central Penn College on November 1st for the Focus on Accounting and Finance event. Students interested in attending were able to learn about actuaries and other finance-related careers. A college visit to Cedar Crest College was held on the same day. The high school will be accepting toy donations for the Toys for Tots program. Donations can be given until the end of the month. A discussion on STEM majors was held in the auditorium on November 2nd. A representative from Harrisburg University was present to provide information about STEM programs and to answer any questions. A college visit to Indiana University of Pennsylvania was held on the same day. The high school arranged a trip to the Turnpike Commission STEAM Day on November 3rd. This program is designed to help young women pursue careers in the STEM field. On November 3rd, the Coffee House Club held a high school student talent show featuring special guests from the Guitar Club. A college visit to Alvernia University was held on November 3rd. On November 8th, the Broadway Club went on a trip to the Lure Center to see the Nutcracker, which is performed by the State Ballet Theater of Ukraine. A visit to Fort Indiantown Gap was held on November 8th. Students interested in joining the armed forces could attend the event for more information on military careers. On November 10th, a representative from Cornell University visited the high school to disclose important information about the college application process. A volleyball tournament was held on November 12th for all students and school district faculty. High school students interested in the math AMC were able to take it on November 10th. The Ronald McDonald House is holding a collection of needed items to be donated to the career facility in Hershey. Donations will be accepted until the 18th. The Student Council is also connecting soda can tabs to support the cause. A representative from Messiah University visited the high school today to inform students about college. A college visit to Millersville University is to be held tomorrow, along with a visit to the Electrical Contractors Expo. A 9th grade field trip to the VOTEC is to be held on Thursday. The 18th annual Veterans Day celebration took place on November 10th. Breakfast and a ceremony were held for veterans, and it was a great success. The National Honor Society is holding a canned food drive from November 9th to December 9th. pickleball tournament is being held during Flex that students can sign up for. Finally, all sports have wrapped up with the golf, field hockey, cross country, football, and soccer seasons ending. They were all a great success.
Thank you, Ari. Great job. This time, moving on to reports, Franklin County Career Center report. Mr. Burt.
Thank you, Mr. August. Several items tonight of interest since our last meeting. We'll start with the Veterinary Assisting Program. Students from that program recently visited Two Top Dairy in Mercersburg, Pennsylvania, where they learned about all aspects of daily operations of the modern dairy. Additionally, the Building and Construction Trades Program recently completed a project for the Greencastle School District, which is essentially that district's environmental center. It's essentially a classroom and where students will learn about environmental studies. And essentially the work performed by the Career Center included roof replacement and electrical upgrades. Further, 27 local business and industry partners helped to prepare over 150 career tech students from the 11th grade as they performed mock interviews. Students gained valuable essential skills, and some of the students during the mock interviews were actually offered jobs on the spot. Additionally, the diesel mechanics program recently had an opportunity. The students there were provided an opportunity to take the Kenworth certification program. That's a program that's only offered to Kenworth technicians. And interestingly enough, the program, because of the timing, the program is a synchronous online study. Because of the timing, which was 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the school used technology and so forth from what was developed during home-based career technology learning during the COVID time, which allowed students to participate in the program 5 days a week. So I thought that was an interesting point. We certainly, while we did not appreciate or enjoy the COVID time, we certainly did learn some technologies and so forth that are continuing to be beneficial to our students. Additionally, upcoming we have open house for 8th grade, which begins tomorrow, November 15th, and for 9th grade, the open house for the school is November 16th, and there are as many as 45 business and industry stakeholders that will be on hand to meet there with students and parents during that time. And finally, I'd like to report that the Joint Operating Committee, which is the operating board of that school, Franklin County Career and Technology Center, voted unanimously on October 27th to partner in a class action suit, to join a class action suit through the school solicitor, Dylan McCandless, King, Coulter, and Graham out of Butler, Pennsylvania, for the commencement of a legal action against Juul Labs for the purpose of claiming money damages related to Franklin County Career and Technology Center costs for the use of vaping products on the school property. That concludes the report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I had the opportunity to attend a meeting down there for the first time. It is a very impressive facility. And they served a great lunch, by the way, too. Other board reports, Mr. Scott?
Yes, we had a safety committee meeting last Wednesday, and was approved to vote to go to the Newsom Municipal Police Department as a security for the school district.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Wolfinger?
Yeah, the outreach committee actually met today to discuss the contract for an executive director position, since having recent input from our solicitor. We will be meeting with the Greyhound Foundation in the upcoming week to discuss the changes as an ad hoc committee. We continue to be laser focused on the end result, which is adding an amazing asset to the foundation and district to help bridge the funding gap and to help with key projects needed as a district. And our hope is to have this ready to go for a vote on December 5th meeting.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Wolfinger? Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kressler? Mr. Board?
No.
Mr. Goat? Dr. Goats? Ms. Eberly, any committee group comments? Thank you. Mrs. Woodall, curriculum report, please.
Good evening, everybody. How are you all today? Doing all great for a Monday. I wanted to spend a few minutes and provide you with some state testing updates. Recently, the state has released our PVOS scores and our comparisons for how we did in proficiency compared to the state. So I wanted to abridge everybody of what's going on here at Shippensburg. So 21-22, so last spring, our students took the PSSAs and Keystone exams. So first up here, I have our English Language Arts proficiency data. So you can look, I have it organized out by grade level, and I have the average that we had for that grade level. So in third grade, we had 49.4% of our students proficient in English Language Arts, and the state average was 51.9. So you can see the difference here was we were 2.5% from the state average. I'm not going to read through every single number here, but I did want to call out, our grade levels where we are above the state average, especially looking at the literature Keystone for the spring. So our students take the Keystone in the fall for those students that take the block schedule of 10th grade English Language Arts in the fall. They take the Keystone in the winter. And then the students who take 10th grade literature in the spring take the spring Keystone. So our students that took the literature Keystone in the spring, 69.1% of them were proficient, which is 14% higher than what the state average was for spring Keystone testers. Our winter lit Keystone testers were a lower percentage, but so was the state. We were still 7% above the state average for that test as well. Moving on to the growth. So we looked at the proficiency compared to the state. Now we're going to look at what the PVOS is. So PVOS is a projected growth area. So the state will look at a student's previous test scores, and they'll make a prediction to say, all right, this student is expected to score at 800 on the PSSA. And if that student scores a 900, the teacher exceeded that growth. If the student scores 800, the teacher helped meet that student's growth where it was supposed to, and if the student scored below 800, then they didn't meet the growth. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the best way to explain it so people understand. When we look at this dashed line here in the middle, this is where where the expected growth is. The green is either 1 standard deviation above or 1 standard deviation below. The light blue is 2 standard deviations. For those of you who aren't statistically, just means it's more statistically significant. So when we look at this, if a grade level is scoring in the dark blue, that means there's significant evidence that they met the growth index, meaning they've exceeded growth expectations for that grade level. So if we look at English Language Arts, our 4th grade, they're killing it. They're really making the students grow above what they're expected. Really, all of our grade levels are killing it, and I have to say that this is 100% our teachers. Our teachers are working very hard to know the standards, to fill in the achievement gaps for students. So we could see their proficiency levels aren't there, but we're growing them more than expected, so we will hopefully get them to proficiency soon. And I do want to say that this is our teachers' very hard work for working with our students here. Now, 6th grade is having some issues, but I will say that they did have some new teachers last year, so being a new teacher, getting used to a curriculum, that could impact why they did not reach their growth that they were projected to meet. Looking at the math proficiency, again, we can see that compared to the state average, for the most part, we are above the state average. We did have some struggles up at the middle school where we are slightly below the state average in proficiencies. Now, I do want to point this out because this number here, 18.9% of our students are proficient in math in 8th grade. I manually calculated that out way earlier this year, and I was very scared because I'm like, that's very bad. Statewide, we're at 22% proficiency in 8th grade. So these numbers are bad, but we're not far off from the state average. So that's very concerning from me as an educator overall because I'm saying, wow, in 8th grade, less than 25% of the kids in our state are proficient in math. Our algebra Keystone, again, we are quite a bit above the state average in our Keystone for both the winter and spring. Looking at the PVOS growth, So our proficiency levels, like I said, I was a little scared of our proficiency levels. We compared them to the state, and we're not far off from the state. But this, again, is where I really want to point out what our teachers are doing. So they are growing our kids more than they were projected to be growing. So our teachers are doing, they're working hard, and it's showing they're working hard because it is impacting our students' growth. So they're not at the proficiency level, but they're growing closer to it because our teachers. And then when we look at our science proficiency level, fourth grade, 11.8% proficient, or 11.8% difference between the state average in fourth grade and our average. Again, our teachers have been working very, very hard in fourth grade to make sure that we are aligned to the science standards, which we're getting new science standard when we just got them passed in June, so we have to redo our curriculum to make sure we're aligned to the new science standards. But they've been working very, very hard at that. Eighth grade last year, we had 2 brand new science teachers in that grade. So that's sort of where I'm projecting that we had a little bit of a struggle there because we had 2 brand new teachers. And our biology keystone, we scored above the state average in both areas, but in the winter keystone, 30% above the state average is pretty unbelievable that we scored. And then again, looking at our PVOS growth, so fourth grade exceeded their growth expectations. Eighth grade was below, but again, there were 2 brand new teachers in that grade level, so that's sort of to be expected, learning new curriculum. And then our biology keystone is meeting the growth expectations as well. So though proficiency, we have some work to do. We're not far off from the state. In some cases, we're above the state. I am very proud overall of the growth that we have in our district and how our teachers are doing with that growth. They're doing a great job, and I think if you guys get to see any of our teachers, please let them know how good of a job they are doing, because we tell them, but sometimes it's better to hear from outside people. So, any questions?
Sherry, what's the plan? I just noticed that with 6th grade, they're well below for ELA and math. So what's the plan going forward?
So we are
to bridge that gap.
We're curriculum writing right now for math. That's part of that was part of our planned process. So we're really delving into our standards to make sure that we're appropriately teaching our standards and understanding what our standards are telling us. And that includes the brand new teacher for 6th grade math is on that curriculum writing team. So he's really getting pushed into the standards, so he's aware of what's going on. And
So is that curriculum writing for next year, though?
we're writing this year.
Right, so
Or it's
what
going-
are we doing, though, to kind of capture some of that this year?
So this year, they're working with their collaborative planning time. So this year, the schedule's newer at the middle school to where they've built in collaborative planning time, so the teachers can meet and discuss some of their pedagogical practices to ensure that they're all on the same page with what they're teaching and how they're teaching it. So that's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So they built in that collaborative planning time. So 6th grade ELA teachers meet with other 6th grade ELA teachers to look over the curriculum, make sure that it's being aligned to the standards. It's not part of the formal curriculum writing stage, but it's like a professional learning community where they're growing and building that efficacy.
Is there any way you're going to be able to track that, though, to see that you're making progress this
We're
school year?
Yes, we're doing like formative assessment, and then we use IXL assessments as well to look for that growth.
Any other questions for Ms. Whittle? Yeah, and I would just echo, any district that has that many in the dark blue really deserves a pat on the back. That is a tremendous effort, as we continue to deal with the lingering effects of the COVID time. That dark blue is showing that we're growing kids more than they were expected to, and that is how you close gaps. Obviously there are areas to work on, but overall, that's a report I think we definitely should stick our chests out about, because it is just tremendous. Thank you, Ms. Whittle.
Thank you.
Moving on to the superintendent's report, you have the enrollment information. We're at 3,573 students in the district. That is over 200 students more than we had last year. And as I did some quick math based on some enrollment figures, it looks like it's 137 more than we've ever had in the district. So, whether that's a bubble or not, we don't know for sure until we get the enrollment study from EI, which we are eagerly awaiting, that will show the projections out for the next 5 years, which can help inform our facilities discussions. You can see the activity fund account balances. Those are, just informational items, all healthy and ready to be used to enhance students' experiences. Any questions on the enrollment or the fund balances? Moving on to donations, I just want to briefly say I am so impressed and at the generosity of our community. It seems like every week we have a long list of donations, so I would like to highlight those. The first four were specifically for our Veterans Day program, which was tremendous. And I'd like to give a public shout out to Miss Jenny Lopez, who coordinated that for us. It was truly a fantastic event, and I think in part because it has community support. So from the Kiwanis Club of Shippensburg, $200 towards the Veterans Program. Franklin County Chapter of the National Society of Daughters of American Revolution, $50. Hub City Club giving a $1,000 donation. Volvo also giving a $1,000 donation to the Veterans Program. Other donations include Penn State University, $500 towards student teachers' expenses. An anonymous monetary donation to support the Ignite Club at the high school of $100. Another anonymous donation of 6 pillows for, looks like to support literacy activities. I also starred the next 3 donations just to again, highlight the foundation and the great work that they do in supporting the district. The Smooth Sailing Program getting $441.86. The foundation donating iPads for use with music at athletic events for nearly $300. Shippensburg, the foundation again giving $896.35 towards field hockey supplies for use at the senior high. So all those donations are well received and greatly appreciated. The other item under the superintendent's report, any questions on donations? Okay. The other item under my report is the GISA amendment documentation. The board may remember, we had an amendment to allow us to pull out additional work, to remove a redundant power feed to the high school. We have some time to consider and deliberate on that. However, it does throw into question the need for generators and what that plan might be. So this amendment gives us some flexibility to pull that out and reduce costs and maybe defer those over to greater needs. Any questions on the GISA amendment? Moving on to the consent agenda, approval of minutes. So it is recommended approval of minutes as presented attached from the October 24th Planning Action Board meeting and from the special board meeting on November 9th, 2022.
Motion to approve it.
Dwayne Burt, move to approve.
So at this time, we can take all consent items as one. So is there, let me back up.
Want any separately?
Anything need to be pulled out from the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to combine items 4A through 4I?
Dwayne Burt, move to approve 4A to 4I.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Burt,
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz,
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
So now this time we would vote on all those items. What's that? Motion to approve consent agenda items 4A through 4I.
Have motion approved.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger.
I'm confused.
So,
The first motion was combine them, and now we're voting on them.
You're on 4 still?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yes.
All of 4 combined.
Okay, y'all have me confused for a second.
Sorry.
Mr. Jim Bard.
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Burt.
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Everly.
yes.
Dr. Nathan Ghost.
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
I want to call a brief executive session before we begin personnel.
What?
We already approved personnel.
Not the personnel.
Yes, we did, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, then there's no really reason to do it. Okay,
Correct.
go on.
Thank you. Moving on to the action agenda items. Proposed stadium project motion. Mr. Scott would like to make a motion to approve up to $8 million for a proposed stadium project on district premises.
I want, my thing at 8 million, but I would like to propose, before I propose, can I hear from them what their new proposal is? Or do I have to go by what?
So it is a little bit out of joint, you know, because there will be a discussion of stadium items under the discussion, you know, where we will talk about how to move forward with the stadium in some additional steps. So if I'm understanding this correctly, this would just be a recommitment to have the stadium at the school and spend up to $8 million. So I think my understanding is the board has already approved for the stadium to be at the stadium or at the high school, and to spend no more than, you know, anywhere from $0 to $8 million on that proposed site, which we don't have a plan for beyond a concept.
Did we approve the 8 million?
We have not approved $8 million to my knowledge. We've approved that it's going to be at the high school setting. So the amount is in question, you know, and according to this motion, it's up to $8 million.
Well, there's another motion, another plan, from my understanding, that is less than the $8 million.
So currently, Mr. Scott, we're in the process of getting to that, and that's what agenda item 6A will discuss. You know, so this is just a commitment to remain at the school and spend no more than $8 million. Now, that's a little nebulous at this point because we don't know some things about the costs, and we don't have options to determine how much money we could spend on a stadium there.
What motion do I have to make just get it started? There was $500-some thousand before. Would that get it started?
So in order to get it started, I think we might want to table this or table this item so that we can get to the discussion part where I can kind of give that information. So there are some problems. This is just a general statement towards building the stadium. When we get to 6A in the discussion, I have information that will talk about what the next steps of that process should be. So this is kind of a commitment to, like I said, a recommitment to the site and a possible number that could be spent.
Okay, I make a motion to whatever Doc just said, then to make a commitment to the stadium, at the high school here. That what you were saying?
So I need to understand what your intent is. Do you want us to move forward with a vote on this item Or would you prefer to withdraw it until we can get to the discussion part?
Well, I'd rather have the discussion because they have a different plan than what we were put before at a lower rate. So I'd rather have the discussion.
Okay.
So withdraw my motion.
We-
Withdraw my motion at this time.
Thank you, sir. Action agenda item 5B, approval of Boyo transportation drivers. The administration recommends approval of the following bus drivers for Boyo transportation: Brittany Schaefer and Monica Haas.
Motion to approve.
A second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Burt,
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz,
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Item 5C, approval of Heckmeyer's bus driver. Administration recommends retroactive approval of October 26, 2022 for the following Heckmeyer bus driver: Christina M. Nicholas.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Dwayne Burt,
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz,
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Item 5D, donation number 1, Shippensburg Area School District Education Foundation. The Shippensburg Area School District Education Foundation is requesting authorization to donate 3 portable PA systems and 4 Fender compact speaker stands with bags for use in the Shippensburg Area School District. These items will be funded by the Performing Arts Funds. The total amount of the donation is $5,456.99. Pursuant to Board Policy Number 702 and the administrative procedures for the same, any gift of over $2,500 must be accepted by the Board of School Directors. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors accept this donation.
Motion approved.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz, Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Burt,
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
5E, donation number 2 from the Educational Foundation, requesting authorization to donate 5 smartboards and 1 stand for use at the Shippensburg Area Middle School. Total amount of the donation is $10,725. Again, pursuant to school board policy, this requires board action.
Motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz,
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Burt,
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Item 5F, amendment to agreement with ESS Northwest LLC. Administration requests approval of the attached addendum to the agreement between the Shippensburg Area School District and ESS Northwest LLC for the continued services of Dr. Alan Moyer.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Dr. Nathan Goetz,
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Burt,
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly,
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Item 5G, agreement for consulting services. Administration recommends approval of the attached agreement to retain Allison Huber as a consultant to perform consulting services specifically in the area of autism and ABA as needed at the rate of $75 per hour and a total amount of this contract not to exceed $8,000.
Dwayne Burt, so moved.
Fred Scott, second.
Roll call.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard,
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Burt,
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz,
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
5H, purchase of Chromebooks. Administration recommends the purchase of 200 Chromebooks. The funding will come out of the designated technology fund balance. This is due to an increased enrollment as we discussed, and with students whose devices break. The purchase of this will be through a state contract, and the district will receive at least 3 quotes. The purchase will not exceed $78,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard.
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Burt.
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly.
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters. Motion carried unanimously.
Item 5I, purchase of laptops. Administration recommends the purchase of 20 teacher administration laptops. Again, the funding will come out of the designated technology fund balance. This is due to an increase in the number of teachers, long-term substitute teachers, and temporary administrators. The purchase will be done through a state contract, and the district will receive at least 3 quotes. This purchase will not exceed $17,000.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Jim Bard.
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Burt.
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly.
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott.
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger.
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Suiters.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
And that brings us to discussion agenda. Allow me to grab my notes. So before the board is a decision in regard to the stadium, and particularly how to take the next steps. Those next steps, in my investigation of where we are in the process, my understanding is that we have concepts drawn up for a stadium to be at the high school site. In order to move forward with construction, there are some other steps that need to take place that are critical for us to make sure that we're getting the right answer to our needs. With that in mind are 2 options for the board to consider and to discuss. The steps in this process, to my understanding, are we've kind of started with a concept of what we would like in general, what we think would fit there, without really taking an opportunity to assess what our needs are for the district, and what our relationship is and could be with Memorial Park. And so we have like sort of a great plan, but it's not matched with what the district's current assets are and current needs. So there are 2 options there. A fundamental step that needs to take place in order to move the project forward is to do what is being called an athletic field use or inventory or need study. I've commonly referred to those as feasibility studies. So this is a in-depth look at the fields that we're using, how we're using, what our programs are, what our programs' needs are, what our program growth might require, and it's a total look at our picture. So in order to move forward with the project, we need to have the athletic field inventory need study. So that's going to allow us to define the project that A, we can afford, and B, that makes sense for our athletic program, okay? So that's the option 1. Option 1 is to just do the study. That is a necessary step, and in full disclosure, this came before the board a while back, and was not approved. Okay, so the district cannot move forward without that study. Okay, I believe the reason why it may have been voted down, without talking to any particular individual, was it did tie us to a certain number, and it was worded oddly. Having said that, there is a cost to this study. The cost, which I will have for the board, an actual number for the next meeting, and my hope is to have a facilities meeting, with individual on that committee to discuss that and give the details there, so that committee can move forward with a recommendation. Having said that, regardless of whether or not if we decide to build a study, whatever cost or fee that was inherent in that study, we would have been paying anyway. So to kind of summarize for the board, the study is the minimal step that we need to take to move forward with the stadium, and a look at our facilities. Now, that's one of the options. That is the first option. The advantages of that are we need to do it. The disadvantages are that doing it in isolation slows the process down, okay? And we don't have to wait for EI's enrollment. Those two things can happen concurrently as we cross-check those things. One will definitely inform the other, but we can start that process and get that information to the board and to the facilities committee so they can review it. Option 2 is to do the study and begin the design services process. Okay, so we have the concept, we need to know what our needs are, and then we need to know what we can build and how we're going to build it, and how that design is actually going to take place after we've been informed of what our needs are. So we can take it one step at a time and do the study, or we can do the study and begin the design process. Both can happen concurrently, and the study will inform the design process. The advantage to that is we don't lose time, and we don't essentially, if we decide to move forward or whatever course the board takes, time is of the essence. So doing both simultaneously has a strong advantage. And this is the part I think we maybe got hung up on the last time is we saw the $500,000 up on the screen, and maybe we're leery of committing to that number. The board must understand we will not spend, we can choose to spend $0 or close to $0 after the design part is done. That it does not necessarily commit us to any specific action, but these two elements, the study and the design service, have to happen for us to get to the next step. So we talked about, I talked about having a process. I talked about, a path forward. This is the path forward for our athletic facilities. Should be noted, and I think some board members had requested this, that this second option of the design study does include the park, what needs and what recommendations might be required at the park. So it is a holistic look at all of the district's athletic facility needs for us to make very difficult decisions, but we can't even get to those decisions without these two steps. The third option, I don't think there's a third option. So no, do nothing is the third option, and I feel like we may have already had that option for a while. So my recommendation is a discussion of and some direction from the board, so that I can get the next step forward. If it's do nothing, that is an option. If it is do just the study, that is an option. Do the study and the design at the same time, that is also an option. I will get to the facility committee and all board members the cost of those, but I would just reiterate, we are not committing to any single number through the design service process. Now, we may have to pay the individuals to do that work for us, but we'll have it forever. But we've not committed to 8 million, 6 million, 500, we have not committed to those things. And that fee will be based on whatever we build. So it's not, it's a percentage of the build that we make. Site and Logic is here, and I would invite, Melissa, if you have, I don't want to put you on the spot. If I've missed anything or I've incorrectly or inaccurately portrayed those discussions, now would be a time to fix that.
I would say that you have clearly articulated what the two options are, and it is in the best interest of this board. In the last few years, I've seen your thirst for a lot of knowledge and transparency in this whole construction process and throughout the discussions that you like to have about all of your facilities, athletics included. So by at least taking this first step with the study, whether it's study alone or design services, you will be able to very clearly understand what your district is, what your district needs are athletically, and also what you have. Sometimes we're not always aware of what we have. So this will be a full inventory of your fields, and you'll be able to make sound decisions based on what the athletic field study says. So if you have questions, I'm happy to entertain.
I got one. Will another study allow us to apply for grants? There's people, other school districts around here eating up millions of dollars of grants. Will a study allow us to apply for grants, or do we need the Plan B? Would Plan B allow us to apply for grants? Because I'm looking at schools getting $3 million towards athletic facilities.
So I think the grants that you were referring to are specifically geared towards athletic improvements. Most of the grant money that's available would like to see a commitment from any entity applying for those with a commitment towards design, to say you're starting that process, and they would like to see typically some sort of conceptual design so they understand that you are well on your way to planning and making a decision about how you would like to proceed. So if it is truly your desire to pursue grant money, a concept design typically has to accompany those applications.
And that's what you talk about, second plan, A and B, right? That's all I want.
So the feasibility study, we would still have to do the design services part of it, and we can do both simultaneously. So one is kind of a slower track. We can get this facility study, and the board could at that point choose to not move forward based on that information. If the board chooses to do both, we have both in hand, and that moves us down the line faster.
To further the discussion a little bit, I would recommend, and I'd like to request that the administration come back on the action agenda with the second option, with both the study and design at two locations. And when we talk about the two locations, I would also request and strongly encourage that that be done in concert with Mr. Kevin Plaster, who is our borough manager. Mr. Plaster spoke earlier. He's in the audience, and as we all know, is very dedicated to working with the borough. Is very dedicated to working with the school district to come up with a workable solution for what I really believe is a community problem. And so to the extent, and I believe that when we get the right solution, it'll be a community solution. So I would request that we move forward with the study and design at two locations. And I would just make this comment too, that I think one of the challenges and one of the things that you touched on that hampered this when it came up before was what I believe was really a cart before the horse move to make the decision to place the field here at the school. And I really believe that it should be considered, if we're really going to look at all the needs of the district, if we're really going to look at all the athletic needs, if we're going to do this study and we're really going to look at the total needs, the way those needs can be met and how those needs can be met in two locations, that we should consider rescinding the motion to build it at the school. We made a motion, that this board approved an action to build it at the school, and we didn't even know what we needed. We really didn't know what it was, and so forth. And I believe that locked us down, locked us into a path that has been difficult. I think it would be a freeing move to rescind that motion and so that we're really free to look at everything on an equal footing and make the best decision for the community and for the district and move forward with this option 2, which is a feasibility study and design efforts in 2 locations. Thank you.
May I ask Mr. Wachter a question? May I ask Mr. Joe Wachter, or past, may I ask him a question? Would you come up, Joe? You were here most of the time we were doing the discussion at the park, correct?
Correct.
All those designs you made, were they taken in consideration of the school district's needs at park, down the park and here?
And school district needs and park needs. There's been designs for both.
So those designs are already here.
Yes.
So we're going to pay to have that redone.
I forget what the number was. Christy, you may remember with K&W the first time, but yeah, they've done multiple designs for both here in the district and at Memorial Park both. Yes. Now, they were just concept drawings.
Yeah, concept drawings.
10,000 feet pricing. Nothing was etched in stone. Nothing was concrete. They were just giving us generalized.
You know, what they have been doing considerably all the time.
Correct.
So we are paying again for the same thing we've done before, correct?
That I can't.
No, I mean, in essence, I know I got a folder full of drawings from the park. Can they draw anymore? Can anything, to your knowledge, can anything else be drawn down there?
I mean, they've filled up the space, the 8-point-something acres down there. They filled it up pretty good with the stadium part of it and the
Tearing down the
baseball part
bleachers
of
and
it.
everything else, that's all been done.
Correct.
Well, I'd like to answer. I'd like to try to answer a part of that question, if I may. The last drawings that I saw, and that's the reason that I asked that this time the work be done simultaneously with having a lot of discussion and so forth with Mr. Plaster, because the last 2 drawings, it was really one iteration with 2 drawings. It involved 2 stadiums. It involved in 2 different locations. It involved from scratch a brand new baseball stadium and a brand new football stadium. It included concession stands for each stadium, 2 sets, restrooms for each stadium, again 2 sets, a net that was some $800,000 expense and so forth, and the total maybe was $10 million. It wasn't. Well, I'm not sure what the right word is, but it was a $10 million deal. We never needed 2 stadiums. We need to. And it was 2 stadiums from scratch. It was a $10 million deal. Whatever we need this time needs to be based more in practicality.
That's not correct, Mr. Burt.
That is absolutely correct.
No, it is not. There were 2 stadiums, one for design up here, if that's what the district wanted, and one was a design at Memorial Park, if that's what the district chose. There was never 2 stadiums going to be built.
You're misunderstanding what I'm trying to communicate. There were 2 iterations. I'm talking about the park only,
Yes.
and I'm absolutely positive
There were 2
that there were
designs of the
2
park.
iterations
Correct.
at the park.
1 stadium, 1 baseball field, just different layouts, that's all.
That's exactly what I just said. One, you call it what you want. One stadium for baseball, 1 stadium for football from scratch.
Correct.
It meant the complete demolition of everything that was there, building 2 brand new, 1 baseball, 1 football. Each had their own restrooms. Each had their own concession stands. Yes,
No,
it did.
We had the
It
concession
absolutely
stands and restrooms split between
The
them.
2 of them.
No, that didn't. But nevertheless, it absolutely did.
I do have a question. As far as when we're talking about, so I know the stadium talk has been going on forever, and we keep talking about the studies. And we're hearing concepts at each place, but we were given kind of the Cadillac version. Has a study of what we actually need with numbers have ever been completed before we were given concepts? Because, I mean, to receive a concept, I would assume that the people designing knew the needs. Like,
I think I understood your question correctly. Your question, and I just want to restate it for clarification. You were asking, was there a preliminary study done to truly understand the needs before the concepts were developed?
correct.
There was not a formalized study. The direction was to meet the needs to have your high school students compete in PIAA athletics. And what would those include? We were provided with estimates on the number of bleachers to accommodate spectators as well as visitors, and, as well as some other items. So that was the general direction that was provided, just to see if those needs could be met at one site versus the other. And then concepts arose at both sites to help inform the decision that hopefully would be made soon. So the study that is before you is hoping to clarify the needs of the district currently. And it will take into account the inventory of all of the fields that the district currently utilizes, as well as the needs for the sports and potentially future needs that the district athletics could have.
And to be clear, we don't have that information at the level that we currently need.
That is correct. Yes.
Well, we clearly need it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. I know it sometimes seems that we've been sort of going around and around, and maybe we have been, Fred. I mean, to your point, I know it feels frustrating, but like if I don't know, if Mr. August is telling us like this is the way forward and this is the fastest way forward, then I'm on board with that, right? I mean, option 2 sounds great. Like let's get moving.
I got no problem with option 2.
I want to
I'll go along
see.
with that, long as we get something started.
Yep.
So I'm looking for we're not getting grants. Everybody's talking about the budget. If we don't get grants or in a position to apply for grants, we're going to live off the budget. I mean, Mifflin County, bigger rural school district than us, got a $3 million grant from the government for their stadium. Cumberland Valley and other schools around here gotten grants. We are losing out, and the money's going, as the economy changes, like I said, we started out with a budget that's $59 million. The economy's eating that money up. We're falling behind, and with the budget they got, the plan they have now, it's for about 5 something or something. I could get more. I could get bathrooms, everything for $6.5 million. We didn't do it. Now I can't get bathrooms because it's down to 4 or 5 points. That's all I'm asking is just to put us in a position that we can apply for grants and we don't have to take tax money, dollar money, to build it.
So, Mr. Scott, Melissa,
Mike's
just
not on, Bill.
reiterate just one more time. We don't have the information that we need to move forward despite previous efforts or whatever may have gone on in the past. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. There has been no comprehensive study of all of the athletic facilities to determine the needs that the district has versus the inventory. And it also, there was no comprehensive study to determine how and where everything will fit in the best place for it.
I understand that. That comes later on.
With the study will confirm your needs. It will confirm the ideal location for your fields to accommodate your current athletic and extracurricular activities. And if you partner that decision with option number 2, which is design services, you will expedite that process.
What we talking about now? 'Cause we're losing money every day, and we're losing taxpayer money every day. How long is when are you going to be able to reduce that?
So the ideal timeline is for it to run concurrent with the district enrollment study of the educational facilities. So it is our belief that K&W will be able to have this study started, I mean, as soon as tomorrow, as soon as the board action to approve, which is later this month, to begin their due diligence on the athletic needs study, and hopefully by the beginning of the year, they will have some sort of recommendation for you. But with Mr. August's coordination with K&W, he'll be able to provide a updated timeline and schedule for completion for you. But internally, we'd like it to be concurrent with your enrollment study.
What did we ask for at the past meetings? I thought we asked for that at the past meetings, about the enrollment and everything. Didn't we ask for that?
The enrollment study is currently ongoing with the Architect EI Associates.
And the needs, that included in that?
So that's a separate study, Mr. Scott. So as I've learned, we have 3 different projects going on. One is the middle school concurrent, that we're getting off the launch pad. We have some work that EI is doing for additional considerations at the high school, middle school, and potentially elementary schools. We're waiting on that answer, and then we have this stadium question. The enrollment that the board approved to do, the enrollment study that EI is doing that the board approved will be part of and inform the feasibility study for the stadium. They can happen at the same time once we give the green light to it, and having that done will expedite the stadium part. So a lot of moving parts, but at the end of the day, to answer your question, the fastest way forward is option 2.
Mr. Vice President, will you entertain a motion on this subject at this time?
I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we take option number 2 to provide a district-wide athletic feasibility study plus the design services required to improve athletic fields at the high school and Memorial, this says field, study and design at 2 locations.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion.
So what you're doing is giving me direction to bring forth an option at the next agenda that we would vote on. If there's more discussion, if there's more questions, I'm looking for that direction. The administrative recommendation is that we do option 2, if it is our intent to move forward with athletic facility improvements. So, if I'm directed to do that would, whatever option the board is giving me, I will put that on the next agenda to be voted on. So, with additional costs attached to them, for whatever the feasibility study cost and whatever the design part comes.
Have it done by the end of the year?
We will target that date, yes.
So would this, because the board had already voted to commit on school property, should we have motion to rescind the initial vote?
So my recommendation would be let's see what the study says. So the study may come back and that will inform that decision. And then the board can either reaffirm that or go another direction. At this point, I think it may be premature, because that is just a general direction at this point. Without a design, without a study, without plans, it doesn't matter at this point. It's just kind of a holding point at this point.
The plans they're doing
It does not commit us necessarily, so let me back up. Currently, the board is committed to build at the high school site. We have not ascertained the best possible situation because we've not looked at it. The study will come back. The study will come back with information that the board can then, through the facilities committee, come back with a recommendation. And my druthers would be we let that sit for now, and we focus on the task at hand, which is getting the study and the design process begun.
You have a motion on the floor. Did you get a second?
I second it.
second. Roll call.
Mr. Dwayne Burt,
Yes.
Mr. Levi Kressler,
Yes.
Mrs. Stephanie Eberly,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan Goetz,
Yes.
Mr. Fred Scott,
Yes.
Mrs. Becky Wolfinger,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Bard.
I still need clarification. This is just to get started, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Charlie Souters.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
6B may be a little redundant. Any further discussion on the stadium?
I have a question. The study isn't, it's, no matter how the study comes, we're not going to have to eliminate sports, are we?
No, sir.
So no matter what we do or say, the sports are we're going to need somewhere for the kids to play.
I'm confident that the study is going to show that, sir. Yes. So we are going to need fields, and we're going to need, it's just an assessment of what are we actually using, and what is the best configuration for that.
Just long sports aren't, no sports are getting.
Nope, sports are not going away, Mr. Scott.
And we're probably going to need interim plans for the sports, depending upon as we move forward, which could involve the university partners and others.
I'm confident to say that if and when construction begins, we are going to have to get creative and reach out to partners to maintain our athletics. School construction of any type is a burden and difficult to navigate, but once you're done, you usually end up in a better spot. But getting through it is a challenge.
Didn't notice that.
Any discussion on athletic teams from this point? Facility projects, just for board discussion, I'm meeting with EI tomorrow to get an update on several areas. My plan is to, again, take that information, update the facility committees and the board through that process. Okay? And any discussions on facilities at this point?
Are we going to schedule a meeting?
We're going to absolutely need to do that. 6D, Ms. Wolfinger, do you want to talk about, or Ms. Eberly?
I think I covered everything earlier. If anybody does have any questions, we'd be, able to answer any.
To Mr. Scott, to your point, when we talk about these things in the funding, this position is a piece of that puzzle, and this is a dedicated position to get that grant money that you're talking about. So this is,
I understand.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we
started.
Yep.
And to package the products and so the projects into products that we can use to raise money in support of and so forth.
Item 6E, playground equipment at Nancy Grayson. So just some background context on that. James Byrd upgraded their playgrounds largely through donations and some effort from the district. That effort was just under $7,000 from the district. The rest of the $40,000 came from a lot of donations. I wanted to update the board on the cost of that, and that Principal Eastman is beginning that process. And it is not my expectation or recommendation that the board pull that money out of fund balance and allow that process similar to what happened at James Byrd to happen and play itself out. So I just wanted to answer any questions on the playground and the best way forward, or any questions you might have about that.
I have, does Nancy Grayson have the financial position or PTO to support that thing? I know.
I don't have the answer to that. The information I have from the Byrd project
economically, the birds.
speaks to large donations from our community partners and smaller donations from individuals. So I didn't really see a PTO line there, although in my previous life, building a playground was a core function. Raising funds for a playground, the PTO was a factor in that. Given the amount of money and how expensive they are, and also the installation of those things, which is astronomical in order to preserve, warranties. It can be quite costly. Just for example, the largest donor to James Byrd was $25,000 donation towards that, and they saved on the installation by having volunteers under the direction of the company. So there are ways to get that number down. That number could be, and talking with the business office, as high as $80,000 with installation. The reason I wanted to put it before you is to, just understand, we do need some kind of equity balance between how we fund playgrounds. And I believe Mr. Eastman, being new, is well on his way to starting to build those things.
The Greyhound Foundation did commit the $10,000, and that was just a commitment. They were trying to figure out, I think may have been like 20%, or they
So there was a number,
yeah,
but
so
yeah.
10,000, like they're not done yet, but until we knew an exact amount and the financial contribution that they could commit. So, I mean, we do have some financial help that way, but Nancy Grayson, as we were talking, I was swinging on those swings when I was in an elementary school, so these kids are definitely
A definite need. I think we have a path forward. It's just going to take a little bit of time, to get there. And we may come back to the board and ask for kind of, a little bit of a nudge to get it to where it needs to be. But just not the entire enchilada, so to speak. We want to make sure we're following similar processes.
I'm excited to see it on the agenda for the first time. Having, again, 4 kids going through the district, and they've gone through Nancy Grayson, and same thing, my kids swang on those swings. It's just nice to see it on there.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect a quick turnaround on it necessarily, but the process has started to get that moving. A pretty joyous one, 6F, request for early graduation. That just brought forth. It's always great when our kids start the next step and have opportunity. So just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. 6G, agreement letter for student SAP services. This will be coming up for board approval. Just our regular agreement with Holy Spirit for SAP services. Any questions on that? 6H, memorandum of understanding between Penn's Youth Initiative, Inc. and Shippensburg Area School District. This is our partnership with Youth Penn to teach lessons based on social media literacy for 7th graders. I think a very important topic, as our kids spend more time online. We need to make sure that they get the information they need to be on there safely. Any discussion items on that? Or any discussion on that, I should say. 6I, Benefit Design Specialists, Inc. insurance renewal. Just recommending that we move forward with that agreement. It's a pretty standard upgrade agreement for insurance services. 6J, formation of a craft club, request to form a new club. I'm always a big fan of kids winning clubs and getting more engaged, so it's great to see, we're expanding our club offerings. Discussion item 6K, agreement with New Story for special education services. New Story is located in Carlisle. It's an alternate placement to provide services for students that we can't service in the district. It's just, again, a continuation of an agreement that we have. Any other discussion on any of those items? At this point, we would move to the citizens' comments regarding non-agenda items. I would ask that you would please identify your name and address all comments to the board as a whole and make sure they're in the form of a statement. Again, we will be under a 3-minute time limit. And let me find my list to... Oh, thanks. Heather Shar.
Hi, thank you for having the time for me. My name is Heather Shar. I reside at 443 Northwest Street, Carlisle. I'm the mother of Anthony Smith. I'm addressing the board today because I have social media posted about my son from this past spring. within the most recent, this past week. I would like to meet personally, Mr. August, with you after this, if this is possible, seeing that the superintendent is no longer here that was here before. And I'm sorry I'm very emotional. This is very hard for me to get up here. When I was a high school student at Big Spring, I had to speak in front of the board. So it's a little different when you're talking about your child. There's an individual that is spearheading an anti-bullying campaign, which some of the items that are on her list I fully agree with. However, that family is also bullying my family now and targeting my son. And I'm not asking you to intervene as the school board, but I'm asking you to make sure that the next Anthony Smith that comes across and is accused of these things is treated with more respect. My son was not respected. And furthermore, the things that I'd like to talk with you, the superintendent, some of the things that I would like to be implemented to help coaches at the school district level with dealing with irate parents is possibly a parent liaison to help out with parent problems. Because coaches nowadays are responsible for so many different aspects. And speaking with my son, this is one of the things that he suggested as well. Because as student athletes, they're also being interviewed after games, the coaches are being interviewed, and a lot of parents have many concerns, and you can't address that right after the game. I also would like to talk about Mid-Penn Broadcasting and the way that they entertained my son over the last year, actually the last 4 years, and the things that they said about him were bullying. At one game at Waynesboro, they decided to tell the whole entire broadcast that my son was kicked off the basketball team, which was not the truth. Tell me that that's not bullying. This is a 17-year-old child. So when you look at people that come in to film your kids that are out there, make sure what they're broadcasting is the truth, because that is not what was the truth. I really, really implore you to figure out something between the parents that are coming up in the program as well. This is another suggestion, that we are explaining to these parents that it's possible your son may not play. They might sit the bench, and at a high school level, you're putting the best kids that are on the floor. And I really feel that if this was addressed a little bit earlier in the middle school years, not only at the beginning of the season, but also in the middle school years, at the beginning of the season, if they're talking to the parents and explaining more about how the process works with the parents, maybe some of these parents wouldn't act as irate as the one that keeps coming to the school board meeting. And that's all I have to say. I appreciate your time. Thank you for entertaining this.
Thank you. Paula Oakes. Irma Rotz.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ermina Rotz.
Sorry, ma'am.
You're fine. I live in Southampton Township in Shippensburg. I noticed that the agenda, you did not discuss personnel issues and you did not vote line by line like you normally would. As a basketball parent, I am concerned by how recent events have been handled and that we have a news crew here again. We're not addressing the elephant in the room. And I'm sure that news crew isn't here to see all of you. But I do want to say thank you to Coach Staver for 30-some years of dedicating his time to our students and our basketball athletes. I think that he has been a tremendous leader in this community, and losing him as a coach is going to hurt our children. Mr. August, I had sent you an email. Thank you for responding. As Heather mentioned, I think we do need a parent liaison. We need someone to be the person between athletics, the administration, and the parents. As a parent going through all of these days of concerns and anxiety over our basketball season has been a great concern, as I relayed to you in my email. I certainly think that our children deserve better. I also don't like that information and things fall in this black hole where things are not communicated to parents. That's how rumors get started. That's how parents get upset. That's how people develop these bad feelings towards the administration, towards athletics, towards booster clubs, you name it. And Mr. August, you saw in my email that I have offered my help. Many of you here on the board know me. You know how I spend my time, how I dedicate my time to the community and where I volunteer. I certainly always offer my help, but I'm saying we're not getting that outreach from the administration, from athletics, from the school board. I know you have an outreach committee, I know you have an athletic committee, but you are not talking to people on the ground who are volunteering their time, countless hours of their time, and also the parents who have many concerns about how things are done and how things are communicated back to us. I am glad to see that we do have a head coach. I wish him well. I will offer him my help as well. But I ask you to learn from this situation, just like we have had other situations. Please learn from it. Please do better, because our children definitely deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you. John Triplett.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Triplett. I reside at 1242 Newburgh Road, Shippensburg, PA. I currently have two daughters that attend the school district, and I had a daughter that recently graduated here at Shippensburg. In 2017, my family and I moved here from California, Oceanside, California. So the reason why we moved here is because I received orders to go do a 9-month combat deployment over to Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Kuwait. My wife's from Shippensburg, PA. She was born and raised here. We always knew that we was going to move back here upon my end of service. In October of 2020 is when I retired after 20 years and 13 days of service in the United States Marine Corps. I would tell you it's serving our country is a great honor, but it's very difficult for your wife and children to go through that process of 20 years. It was a tough decision I had to make, but it was the right decision. I decided to retire because I didn't want to move for the 6th time to a new school district with my kids. So I decided to get out and do what's best for my family and put my kids and wife first. With that being said, in the state of Pennsylvania, there are great benefits for veterans and their family and their spouses and their kids. One of the programs, which I don't know if you guys are aware about, is called the Disabled Veterans Real Property Tax Exemption. So service members who are honorably discharged and meet one of the following conditions must be either blind, paraplegic, or sustain the loss of 2 or more limbs, or has a service-connected disability declared by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, or be 100% total and permanent disabled. So I am here telling you that I am 100% total and permanent disabled. You may not be able to tell by looking at me today, but the things that veterans go through mentally and physically are not seen from the outside, but it's something that we have to live with on a daily basis. Because of that, the Department of Defense, along with the State of PA Veterans Affairs Office, provide us a benefit to exempt our property taxes, but we had to ensure that we demonstrate that it is a financial burden on us and our family. So in July, we decided, in July timeframe, our house that we were construction was about done. So in July, I paid my property taxes as required. At that time, it was zoned as a piece of land. I paid my property taxes. And August 1st is when we moved into the property, and it was zoned as residential. In mid-September, that's when my property was assessed. And August 19th is when I was declared by the state of Pennsylvania, along with the Department of Defense, that I was exempt from all property taxes moving forward. But it was up to the school's discretion if they wanted to go ahead and tax me for the current school year. So in November this month, I received a tax bill from the school district. And they expect me to pay a large chunk of money. I'm not going to say how much it is, but it's a lot of money by the end of December. To me, it would make common sense practices. If somebody is tax exempt, the letter states what they're tax exempt from, that they should be prorated from 1 August to the date of that letter. So I don't understand why the school board or the district office has made a decision to go ahead and make an individual pay for a whole entire 2022-2023 school year tax, and they've already demonstrated to the state of Pennsylvania and the Department of Defense that they are not in a financial place to where they can afford to pay property taxes. I'm requesting to the school board that you guys review your current policy, and if a veteran that is 100% disabled and provide you guys a certificate saying that they're tax exempt, then they should be prorated from that day of the letter. And I do have documentation to provide to the board to show you that I am tax exempt.
Mr. Triplett, I can follow up with you to kind of go through that. It's kind of the first I've heard of it, so.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Jonathan, I just want to say thank you for your service.
Yes.
And we don't have a policy. Is that something that the policy committee send that just to review after speaking with Chrissy to see if there is like some documentation requirements for forgiveness?
I'll look into it. I really can't speak to it at this point.
If
like I
it's a law,
said.
if it's a law, you don't need no policy. The law is the law.
So I'll dig in and get the board information.
Thank you.
Heather Haney?
She booked.
Okay. Mrs. Spica?
Hi there, Susan Spica, 11 South Prince Street. So I read in the paper about the discussion about bringing in the school resource officer into Shippensburg. And so I have a little handout from the ACLU, and I just wanted to read a few thoughts about, like, it's a big deal to have an armed police officer in our buildings, and I think I'm hoping that the district will, be in a position where you choose the individual who comes into the building, and that you will not have someone just deployed into the building that's chosen by some outside entity, so that you understand who will be in the building and that it's someone who wants to be around children if you do have this. And then before this person comes into the building, I hope you will develop a thoughtful governance document that can be used to ensure that this resource officer's responsibilities are detailed before any officer takes post up inside the building. We want the law enforcement, school officials, and the communities they serve to have a shared understanding of what this SRO's job is. And we need to make sure that this officer receives support before deployment in the building so that the officer can also be successful. So I think, you guys need to distinguish between disciplinary misconduct that will be handled by school officials and criminal offenses that will be handled by law enforcement. So it needs to be clear that children will not be subjected to formal law enforcement intervention for normal school issues, because this happens in schools all over the place. There can also be there have been principals who've been arrested by police officers as they're trying to have students not get arrested by the police officers. So you really need to have good communication about what that role of the police officer is. We need to respect the rights of the children in the school. So you really need to delineate the students' rights, including the circumstances under which they can be questioned or searched by school officials versus by a police officer and having the police officer present. We need transparency and accountability because parents have a right to know what's happening in schools. The community has a right to understand how the dollars are being spent. And we need to have mandatory public reporting about the SRO activities and meaningful compliance resolution systems so that if there is a problem that a family member has with the way their child has been treated by a police officer, there needs to be a way that there can be conflict resolution. And please make sure that this officer receives a lot of training before coming into the building. a lot of these officers, most police officers, are trained to deal with adult perpetrators on the street in dangerous situations. They are not trained to be in schools with students all day. They do not know about kids with disabilities. There are a lot of things that they just don't understand. So, you know, there are training programs for police officers who are going to be in schools that include child and adolescent development and psychology, and especially learning about children with disabilities. So, do you want my little handout?
Absolutely, we'll take it. Sure. I feel like a judge you may approach.
Thank you.
That appears to be everyone on the list. Is there anyone else that would like an opportunity to speak at this time before we move forward? At this point, board comments. Mr. Scott?
Yes, I know, before you got here, Superintendent, we discussed having a public relation person. I'm getting tired of people saying they don't know what's going on in the school district. I think we need just the two ladies that talked here, and I think we discussed it. We just never followed through on it. We never followed through on it. I think we need somebody to get the information out instead of waiting. That was a problem before. The superintendent carried all the weight for getting all the information out, and I think we need to look into getting a public relations to work to take that load off your back and get immediate information out.
That actually is part of the job description of the executive director position.
She's going to do that, or he or she going to do that? Okay, that's fine.
Mrs. Wolfinger?
Yeah, so I just want to say congratulations to the Greyhounds for another great season. Sad that, you know, I could not go to Saturday night's game with the marching band, but they tried their best and did a great job this season. And then on the subject of the marching band, come make sure to go check them out on Saturday. They have a double parade day, so it'll be a really, really early start to the morning. 6:45 we'll be here at the school, headed to Harrisburg for the first parade that they'll compete in, and then in the evening we'll be in Chambersburg for a second competition.
Thank you.
Just, I guess, good luck to all the winter sports athletes. I think your season starts this Friday. Middle school may not start Friday, but good luck to all those student athletes. Work hard every day. Best of luck. I hope they all have healthy and successful seasons. Thank you.
Sport.
Just two comments. One is I'm not opposed to using the park as a practice field or something. I just feel that we need the stadium up here. I didn't like the wording on option number 2, but I know that's still up there. That's still something we need. And one other comment that we had this problem before, and it happened tonight about pulling stuff off the discussion agenda and voting on it. That's it.
Dr. Boots.
Yeah, so a couple of things, thanks. First, a big thank you to the foundation. I really appreciate their efforts in fundraising and whatever. So a thank you for the donation of the audio equipment and also the classroom materials and smart boards. Appreciate that relationship, appreciate their fundraising and attentiveness to district needs. A second comment that I'm not sure exactly how to say this, but we earlier we had the curriculum report and we saw the test scores and stuff, and that's cool. Like, we need to see those measures, and we take the tests and whatever. But man, I just when we get kind of really excited about test scores, it makes me uncomfortable because test scores are maybe like the least important indicator of anything that we should care about, in my mind. And when we measure something, then it means that often that's where our attention goes. And you focus too much attention on test scores, and then you that ends up harming all of the other important things that we do in education. I mean, one of the real problems with education is it's so very difficult to measure the work that we do. And so then when we create a measure that's, we all know is very imperfect, right? All these measures are super imperfect, but just because we have a measure, then we kind of focus too heavily on it. So yes, it's always awesome to see good test scores and,
test scores that are sort of lower than expected. Those can be an indicator that maybe, you know, something needs to be addressed, but let's please just kind of, I don't know, not put too much emphasis on test scores, because then that, you know, then the teachers hear, oh, that's what they care about. They care about test scores. Well, I can get them test scores. And that's not really the most important thing that our teachers are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Goetz. Mrs. Eberly?
Well, I just want to say my daughter came home super excited about the tables at the high school. So the tables that we had ordered a while ago are in the dining room. They just scream Greyhound Pride, and it's crazy how, you know, just moving some like institutionalized tables to some high tops can just make a kid's day and increase the experience at school. So if you didn't see them, go check them out.
Absolutely. The environment matters. And I think we've got big decisions around those coming up. So thank you. Mr. Burt?
Just a point of clarification. It's my belief, somebody mentioned about pulling something from the discussion agenda and voting on it. It's my understanding that what we did, and we did so unanimously, is agree to take that item from the discussion agenda and bring it back next month to the action agenda with pricing and so forth. So that's the only action we did, is we moved something forward in an official way from the discussion agenda to come back to the action agenda next meeting. Is that correct?
I think procedurally, I don't know that we necessarily needed to vote on that. I just needed direction. You know, it was a.
And hopefully you got it in that way.
I definitely did. Mr. Suiters?
I'm good.
Just in closing, I just want to thank everyone for coming. Thank the board. You know, we've navigated a interesting week. It was great to see the football team on Saturday. They rallied back and almost had it, and I was very proud of them and their effort, and just wanted to you know, congratulate them and all of our athletes. And to Dr. Goetz's point, you know, we have to be more than test scores. And it's a K-12 experience, and you know, that's what we will endeavor to do moving forward.
Have a motion to adjourn.
The motion we adjourn.
Second.